all you wanted was to get in shape or put on some muscle or get shredded, ripped, yoked, jacked, fluffed. Okay, I think that last one is something different. But you started lifting, and suddenly all your ads and pop-ups are trying to sell you every possible strength training accessory. I mean, how could you possibly PR if you haven't wrapped, braced, or strapped every joint in your body? So what do you really need? What's cheating? And what's just a scam? That's what we're going to get into today. What's up guys, it's Eric from Late to the Game Outdoors, and we're gonna go piece by piece through all the standard lifting accessories on the market. Now we're not talking about bars and plates and the actual stuff you need to lift. That's assumed at this point. I'm talking about anything that would go on your physical person to assist you in your lifting endeavors. And I'll tell you up front, there's only one, maybe two of the items in this pile that I would put in the need category. I'm not saying that means the rest are irrelevant, just that they're less critical to your performance in strength training. So let's start from the least necessary and end with the most crucial pieces. Bottom of the list, number 7, knee sleeves. All right, here's the deal for these or knee wraps, which we'll get to in a minute. There's no substitute for proper form in the squat. If you start getting knee pain while squatting, don't just turn to these bad boys. It's a Band-Aid. Make sure your form is dialed in before you start adding contraptions. Speaking of form, these can also mess up your form if you aren't careful. The different feel at the bottom of the squat can cause slight changes to the geometry of everything, and over time you'll experience some form creep, and suddenly you're introducing the problem you may have purchased these to avoid in the first place. All that being said, they provide a little bit of extra support, they keep the knee joint warm, but I haven't experienced enough support or a rebound out of a squat to consider these all that worthwhile. Next up, number 6, knee wraps. I realize this sounds like we're arguing semantics. I kept these separate from the sleeves because I do think if you're gonna go with some sort of knee support, wraps are far more effective than the sleeves. Again, they're no substitute for proper form, but they will give you just a bit of a rebound out of the bottom of your squat. Yes, they're more of a pain to wrap and unwrap for every set, but the ability to get them really tight is what makes them effective. Again, they're towards the bottom of the priority list, but if the little bit of support gives you that mental advantage to drop into a heavy squat, go for it. Number 5, wrist wraps. These ones are gross. Essentially, what we just talked about with knee wraps, but for your wrists. I like these for those times when the bench gets up in the 90% and above range. I would say don't be that guy who wraps your wrists and goes through the entire workout. Unless of course you have some injury or pre-existing condition. But because you want to let your wrists get fatigued and strengthen all the little muscles and tendons and all the stuff that's in there. But when you're really up towards the limits of your upper body strength, your wrists are basically the weakest point in that chain. So adding just a little extra reinforcement can help you get that weight and get that hypertrophy, I don't care, on the larger musculature without making the weakest point cause you to miss the lift. For me, I'll run through all my warm-ups without them or just leave them all together if it's a lighter weight day, but I'll always wrap up for a super heavy set or a PR attempt on the bench. Number 4, moving right into the middle of the list, deadlift straps. Now, I know the old adage, if you can't grip it, you can't lift it. And just like the wrist wraps, I'm not saying you should use these on every rep you ever pull off the floor. But my quick journey on the issue, I got my deadlift to a point where just my raw overhand grip became the weak link in the chain. So I switched over to the inverted, one-hand supinated grip. It's highly effective, and it definitely allowed me to pull more weight. But with consistent training and the weight getting heavier, I started to get some tendonitis in the bicep of my supinated arm. Finally, I ordered some wrist straps so I could get back to a dual overhand grip, but keep the weight going up. Problem solved. Again, they're not high enough on the list that I would call them necessary, but if you plan to train the deadlift and get it nice and heavy, they're a terrific tool to accomplish that and minimize your potential for injury. Honestly, even I was surprised that I'd put this next one this high on the list, But here we go. Number 3, chalk. That was a mistake. I trained for years without it, and then finally bought some as I was increasing my pulls and having some grip issues. I could never go back. The bar feels like it's glued to your hand. I already use a bare steel bar, so the grip is pretty awesome to begin with. Add some chalk to the equation, and it's like it becomes an extension of your arm. Seriously, it's so cheap, it's so easy. Just buy some and you'll be glad you did. If your gym doesn't allow chalk, sneak it in. If they bust you, find a new gym.
I want to quit the gym.
All right, now we're getting into what I would consider the necessity pile. Number 2, a good lifting belt. If you're gonna get strong, then you're gonna squat heavy. And if you're gonna squat heavy, you'll eventually need a belt. It's that simple. It's not cheating, it's not robbing you of the ability to strengthen your back or your core. Actually, the way the belt works is to give your abs something they can contract even harder against, so you'll actually be able to develop more core strength using it. Anyway, once the weight gets up there on your squat, your deadlift, your overhead press, it's just good sense to have some extra core stabilization in the mix. Nylon, leather, Velcro, buckle, it doesn't really matter. I lifted for years with a nylon Velcro belt and loved how tight I could get it, but once that Velcro starts to wear out, there is nothing quite like the panic you feel when your belt pops open in the bottom of a very heavy squat. It only took a couple of those for me before I decided to try the leather buckle style belt instead, and I've loved it. But find what works for you and wear a belt. This is it, the big one, the top of the list, the number 1 most important piece of gear you could ever purchase for your strength training efforts. Drumroll please. Quality lifting shoes. Okay, I know that's not the sexy answer everyone wanted, but it's the truth. Here's the deal. The squat is the foundation of strength training, and properly executed heavy squats require a rock-solid foundation. I've unracked heavy squats in regular running shoes, and I've seen the entire heel fully compressed. I've lifted in old-school chucks, and it never felt fully solid. I've even tried the hybrid CrossFit trainer things, and there is just absolutely nothing that compares to the feeling of a fully supported actual lifting shoe. Nice stiff sole, tiny bit of a heel elevation, 1 or 2 straps compressing and supporting the arch of your foot. You just need them. But you can shop around and find several really decent options for about $100. And since you're only using them in the gym for lifting purposes, they'll last you years and years. If you're committed to getting strong, just buy the shoes. I guarantee they'll be worth it. So there you have it. Basically every lifting accessory your newsfeed is going to try to sell you the minute you search for strength training or powerlifting. Start with the most important 1 or 2, and then you can add specific supplemental items as you get into it, the weight on the bar goes up, and you discover weak points that you want to shore up with a specific piece of gear. I hope this was helpful. If you want more fitness stuff, there's a link to my website below, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe, and I'm going to be getting even more fitness, lifting related content out there in the very near future. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys later.